She was humming Amazing Grace, her mother's favorite hymn, while she slipped poison into my morning tea. My baby girl, the one I'd carried through thunderstorms when she couldn't sleep, was trying to kill me with the same hands I'd taught to pray. The morning light filtered through the Spanish moss outside our Savannah home, casting shadows that danced across Celeste's face as she stood over my steaming cup of Earl Grey. Her hand trembled just slightly as she stirred in what looked like honey. But honey doesn't come from a small jade vial hidden in your palm. "Morning, Daddy," she said, her voice sweet as Georgia peaches. "Made your favorite, Earl Grey with wildflower honey, just how Mama used to make it." I forced myself to smile from my leather recliner, playing the role of the dying father she believed me to be. 6 months ago, the doctors at Emory had given me 18 months to live. Pulmonary fibrosis, they said. Too many years breathing in burn pit smoke during my tours in Iraq. Celeste had driven up from Miami the very next day, after 13 years of silence between us. "You're an angel, sweetheart," I rasped, letting my voice crack with practiced weakness. The performance of frailty had become second nature. What Celeste didn't know was that yesterday, Dr. Thornton had called with miraculous news. The experimental treatment was working. My lungs were healing. I might have decades left. But I hadn't told it yet. Something whispered caution in my gut, the same instinct that had saved my life in Fallujah. She set the cup on the antique side table next to my chair, careful not to meet my eyes. "I need to run to the pharmacy on Broughton Street. Drink it while it's hot. I made it special for you." Special, indeed. I watched to grab her designer purse, her movements too quick, too eager to leave. The front door clicked shut, and I heard her Mercedes purr down our tree-lined street. I walked steadily to the kitchen sink and poured the tea down the drain, watching the amber liquid swirl away along with whatever she'd added. Then I made myself a fresh cup, black, no honey, no poison. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to ask you something that's been haunting me. If you saw your own child, the baby you sang lullabies to, the one you taught to ride a bike in Forsyth Park, if you saw them become a stranger capable of murder, would your heart break the way mine did? If this story touches that sacred place in your soul where family should mean everything, please take just 1 second to subscribe, because what I'm about to share might save another parent from discovering their child has become their enemy. That afternoon, Celeste returned with bags from the historic district boutiques. She kissed my forehead, and I smelled expensive perfume, not the vanilla body spray she used to wear, but something French that cost more than she should be able to afford on her yoga instructor salary. "How was your tea, Daddy?" "Perfect as always," I lied, studying her face. Relief washed over her features like a wave. "Good. I'm making Mama's shrimp and grits tonight, the recipe from her grandmother." My dear Eleanor's recipe. The thought of Celeste corrupting that sacred family tradition made my chest tight with grief, but I simply nodded. "That sounds wonderful, Angel." As she busied herself in the kitchen, humming Amazing Grace again, I retreated to my study and quietly activated the small camera I'd installed last week. Just a precaution, I told myself then. Now I knew it would capture everything.
She was using my mother's cast-iron skillet, the one that survived Sherman's march through Georgia, to cook the meal that would kill me. The aroma of Eleanor's family shrimp and grits filled our antebellum home, but tonight it carried an undertone of something sinister. From my study, I watched Celeste on my laptop screen, the hidden camera providing a clear view of our kitchen. She moved with practiced grace, using the same techniques her mama had passed down through 5 generations of Savannah women. Then she paused, glancing toward my study. Satisfied I wasn't watching, she reached into her Louis Vuitton bag, another red flag, since when could a part-time yoga instructor afford that, and pulled out the same jade vial from this morning. My heart shattered like century-old china as I watched my only child measure 4 drops into the serving spoon she'd used for my portion. 4 drops of what? The methodical way she counted them suggested she'd researched the dosage carefully. She began humming again. This time, "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot," the spiritual I'd sung to her during thunderstorms when she was small. The same song Eleanor had hummed while cooking Sunday dinners. The desecration of that memory felt like vandalism of something holy. I saved a video file to 3 different cloud services and emailed it to my old Army buddy Jackson, stationed at Fort Benning, with instructions to open it only if something happened to me. Then, I made my way to the kitchen doorway. "Smells like heaven in here," I said, making her jump. "Daddy, you scared me half to death." She pressed a manicured hand to her chest, laughing nervously. "Dinner's almost ready. Why don't you go wash up?" In the powder room, I stared at my reflection in the mirror Eleanor had bought at an estate sale in Charleston. The man looking back wasn't the dying patient she thought she was poisoning. He was Garrison Blackwood, survivor of 3 tours in Iraq, widower of the finest woman in Georgia, father to a daughter who'd lost her way. When I returned to the dining room, 2 bowls of shrimp and grits sat steaming on our mahogany table, the same table where Celeste had done her homework, where we'd celebrated 18 Christmases, where Eleanor had served her last meal before the cancer took her. "Come sit," Celeste urged me, pulling out my chair. She had positioned my bowl at my usual spot, hers directly across. "I want to make a toast." She raised her sweet tea glass, and I saw tears in her eyes. Were they real? Even now, I wanted to believe they were. "To Daddy," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "for all the years we lost, and for the time we have left together." "To family," I responded, raising my own glass. "And to truth." Something flickered in her green eyes at that word, truth. Fear? Guilt? But she clinked her glass against mine and took a sip. "I need to pause here and ask, have you ever looked at someone you raised, someone you gave everything to, and wondered if you ever really knew them at all? If you're still watching, if your heart is breaking alongside mine, please hit that like button. Not for me, but for every parent who needs to hear this warning. Every single like is a beacon that could guide someone away from the same devastating betrayal." "Excuse me, sweetheart," I said, standing suddenly. "I forgot my heart medication. Dr. Thornton says I can't eat without it." "Oh, I can get—" No, you sit. Enjoy your grits while they're hot." I walked around the corner, but instead of going to my bedroom, I doubled back, silently, a skill learned in combat zones. In one smooth motion, I switched our bowls. Celeste was scrolling through her phone when I returned, both bowls untouched. "Sorry about that," I said, settling back into my chair. "Now let's enjoy this wonderful meal you made." We ate in relative silence, but I watched her every movement. Each spoonful she took of her own poisoned food was a confession, a conviction, a verdict she'd written herself. "Daddy," she said after a few minutes, "I've been thinking about the house." "What about it?" "Well, when after your—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I just want to make sure everything's in order. The will, the insurance policies, the deed to this historic property." The casual cruelty of discussing my death while actively poisoning me would have been breathtaking if I hadn't been prepared for it. I assured her everything's taken care of. You don't need to worry. She smiled then, genuine this time. The smile of someone who thought they were winning a game they'd rigged from the start.
She grabbed her stomach the same way her mama did during chemo. But Eleanor had been fighting for life. Celeste was reaping what she'd sown. Celeste's perfectly manicured hand trembled as she reached for her sweet tea, missing it on the first try. Beads of sweat appeared on her forehead like morning dew, and her breathing became shallow as a bird's. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice strained, I don't feel right." I leaned forward with practiced concern, the worried father she expected me to be. "What's wrong, Angel? You look pale as a magnolia blossom." "My stomach." She pressed both hands against her abdomen, doubling over slightly. "It's burning like fire, like something's eating me from the inside." The irony wasn't lost on me. The same symptoms she'd expected to see in me were now ravaging her own body. I wondered what she'd used. Rat poison? Antifreeze? Something more exotic she'd found on the dark web. "Maybe the shrimp was bad," I suggested, innocently, though mine tasted fresh as the morning catch. Her green eyes widened at that, darting to my empty bowl, then back to my face. I saw the moment realization dawned, quickly followed by panic. How was I sitting here, calm and unaffected, when she'd watched me eat the entire poison serving? She tried to stand but swayed dangerously. "I need to go to the emergency room." "Of course, Angel." I stood, steadying her with surprising strength, another thing she didn't know about my recovery. "Let me call 911. "No!" The word came out sharp, desperate. She couldn't go to the hospital with poison in her system. Too many questions. I just need to lie down. It'll pass." I helped her to the parlor sofa, the same one she'd practiced piano skills on, where she'd opened Christmas presents, where Eleanor had read her bedtime stories. If you're still watching, if your heart is racing like mine was that night, then you understand the weight of betrayal from blood. Please share this story with someone you love, a parent, a grandparent, anyone who trusts too easily. Hit that share button not for views, but because somewhere right now, an elderly parent is sitting across from someone they trust completely, not knowing they're one meal away from murder. Your share could be the warning that saves their life. "Celeste," I said softly, settling into Eleanor's antique rocking chair beside her, "there's something I need to tell you." She was curled like a question mark now, tears streaming down her cheeks. "What?" she gasped. "I know about Matthias." The name hit her like a physical blow. Her eyes flew open, pupils dilated with more than just pain. "How did you—" Matthias Crenshaw, 36 years old, con artist with 4 convictions for elder fraud across the Southeast. I pulled out my phone, showing her a photograph my private investigator, Louise Thibodeau, had taken. It showed Celeste and Matthias at a cafe in Miami, their heads bent together over documents that looked suspiciously like my life insurance papers. "You've been spying on me?" Her voice was weak but indignant. "For 5 weeks, ever since you suddenly became so devoted to cooking my meals." I swiped to another photo, Matthias at a chemical supply company in Jacksonville. "He bought the poison, didn't he? Told you exactly how much would mimic a heart attack in a man with lung disease." Celeste's breathing was becoming more labored. "Daddy, please, I need a doctor." "You need the truth," I said firmly. "The truth is, I switched our bowls while you were distracted by your phone. You've been eating your own poison for the last 45 minutes. The look of horror on her face should have brought me satisfaction, but all I felt was a deep, aching sorrow. This was my baby girl, the child I taught to swim at Tybee Island, who dressed as a princess for Halloween, who sobbed in my arms when her first boyfriend broke her heart. "You switched?" she whispered, understanding dawning. "But how did you—" "A father knows his daughter," I said simply, "even when she's planning her funeral while he's still breathing." "It wasn't supposed to kill you," she cried out, then clamped her mouth shut, realizing her confession. "No? Then what was 4 drops of poison supposed to do?"
Matthias said it would just make you weak. Weak enough to need full-time care. Then we could get power of attorney, access your accounts, sell this historic house to developers. She was sobbing now, whether from pain or guilt, I couldn't tell. And my life insurance, the $500,000 policy Eleanor insisted we take out? She didn't answer, but her silence was admission enough. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling 911 now. You need medical attention. They'll arrest me. Yes, I agreed. They will. As I dialed, I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Somewhere beneath the designer clothes Matthias probably bought her, beneath the calculated coldness, was there any trace of the little girl who used to call me her hero? The 911 operator answered and I began. This is Garrison Blackwood at 425 Bull Street. My daughter has ingested poison and needs immediate medical attention. Celeste's eyes met mine as I spoke, and in them I saw not remorse, but rage that her plan had failed. The paramedics found a plane ticket to the Cayman Islands in her purse, dated for tomorrow. My funeral would have been next week. The red and blue lights painted our historic Savannah neighborhood in alternating waves of crisis. Our neighbors, the Beaumonts, the Caldwells, sweet Miss Eugenia from the house General Sherman had spared, stood on their wraparound porches watching as paramedics wheeled Celeste out on a stretcher. She was conscious but weak, an IV already in her arm, her face a mask of fury and fear. Detective Marcus Washington, a tall man with kind eyes who'd grown up 2 streets over, sat across from me in our parlor. The same room where Celeste had taken her first steps, where we'd hosted Eleanor's wake, where 5 generations of my family had marked life's passages. Mr. Blackwood, Detective Washington said gently, his southern drawl softening the official nature of his visit, I need you to walk me through everything from the beginning. I handed him the USB drive containing all the video evidence. 5 weeks of surveillance footage. Everything you need is there. As he reviewed the files on his laptop, his expression grew increasingly troubled. This is thorough. You documented everything. 32 years in Army intelligence, Detective. Documentation saves lives. I paused, then added, I just never thought I'd need those skills to protect myself from my own daughter. The poison, he said, looking up from the screen. Do you know what she used? Ethylene glycol, antifreeze. Sweet tasting, mimics heart failure in someone with lung disease. Matthias Crenshaw purchased it from Coastal Chemical Supply in Jacksonville 8 days ago. My investigator has the receipt. Detective Washington made notes, then pulled out his phone. We need to bring in Mr. Crenshaw immediately. He made a quick call, then turned back to me. A unit is heading to his hotel now. I have to stop for a moment because what happened next proved this was bigger than just one greedy daughter. If you're a parent watching this, if you've ever loved someone enough to trust them with your life, please subscribe to this channel. Every subscription is a voice saying that family should mean protection, not predation, that the people we raise shouldn't be planning our funerals for profit. 3 hours later, Detective Washington returned with news that changed everything. Mr. Blackwood, we found something at Crenshaw's hotel room you need to know about. He sat down heavily, his professional composure cracking. There were files on 7 other elderly victims across the Southeast. All died within the last 3 years. All had adult children who inherited substantial estates. My blood ran cold. He's done this before? We believe so. Your daughter, she may not have been the mastermind. Matthias Crenshaw appears to be a serial creditor who targets adult children with wealthy parents. He finds them in grief support groups, caregiver forums, places where they're already thinking about inheritance. You're saying he manipulated her? I laughed bitterly. Celeste wasn't manipulated, she was recruited. Mr. Blackwood, we found something else. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photograph. Do you recognize this? It was Eleanor's pearl necklace, the one passed down from her great-grandmother, the one we'd buried her with, the one that had been missing from her grave when I'd visited last month. "That's my wife's necklace," I whispered, my hands shaking now. "How did Matthias—" "Celeste gave it to him, as a down payment, apparently, for his services in planning your murder." The room spun. She'd desecrated her mother's grave, stolen from the woman who'd given her life, who'd loved her unconditionally, who'd died whispering Celeste's name. "There's more," Detective Washington continued reluctantly. Text messages between them. Crenshaw was pushing for a faster timeline because— He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Because your daughter told him you were recovering, that the doctors had given you good news about the experimental treatment. So she had known. She'd known I was getting better, that I might live for years, and that knowledge had accelerated her plans to kill me." "Where is Crenshaw now?" I asked, my voice hollow. "He's at Miami International Airport. He was trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands when we caught him. He had $75,000 in cash and a fake passport." 75,000, I trailed off, understanding. Celeste gave him that money. From an investment account she had access to, yes, the one you'd set up for her mother's medical expenses that was never closed. The betrayal kept deepening, like quicksand that wouldn't stop pulling me under. That account had been sacred, Eleanor's fighting fund for cancer. Now it was funding my murder. "Mr. Blackwood, Celeste is asking to see you." "No." "She says she wants to explain." "There's nothing to explain." I stood, walking to the window that overlooked the garden Eleanor had planted with heritage roses. "My daughter died the moment she poured poison into my tea. Whoever is in that hospital bed is a stranger wearing her face." But even as I said it, I knew I was lying. The stranger had been living in my house for 6 months, and I'd been too desperate for family, too lonely, too eager to believe in redemption to see the truth. Detective Washington stood to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, Mr. Blackwood, you saved your own life, and you've helped us identify a serial killer. Those other families will finally have justice." After he left, I sat alone in the gathering darkness, Eleanor's photograph in my hands, wondering how we'd created someone capable of such calculated evil.
The lawyer's hands shook as she showed me the forged documents. My daughter had been practicing my signature since she was 14 years old. Patricia Winthrop, whose family had been handling Savannah legal matters since before the Civil War, spread the documents across her antique conference table like evidence of a massacre, which, in a way, they were. The massacre of trust between father and daughter. "Garrison," Patricia said, her usually composed voice tight with barely controlled anger, "these forgeries go back 15 years, before Eleanor got sick, before you ever had health problems." I stared at the papers. Deeds, insurance documents, bank forms, all bearing my signature, except I'd never signed them. She started planning this when she was 13 years old? The words came out strangled. "It appears so. Look here," Patricia pointed to a document dated when Celeste was in middle school. "She tried to make herself sole beneficiary on your life insurance while Eleanor was visiting her sister in Charleston." I remembered that week. Celeste and I had been alone, and she'd been so helpful, organizing my office, filing papers. Now I understood she'd been doing more than helping. The forgeries evolved over time. See how the signature gets more sophisticated? She was practicing, perfecting your handwriting for over a decade. Louise Thibodeau, my private investigator, knocked and entered. The sharp-eyed Creole woman who'd been shadowing Celeste for weeks looked exhausted but determined. "Mr. Blackwood, I found him. The forger, Antoine Desalegn, based in New Orleans. He's been in business with Matthias Crenshaw for 7 years. I need to pause here because my hands are shaking just remembering this moment. If you're still with me,
If you understand the pain of discovering that betrayal isn't just one act, but a lifetime of deception, please hit that like button. Your support isn't just a number. It's telling other victims they're not alone. It's saying that truth matters more than blood. There's something else, Louise continued, pulling out her tablet. Celeste's real life in Miami, the one she never told you about. She said she was working as a yoga instructor, living with roommates. All lies. She's been living in a penthouse on South Beach for 3 years, paid for with money she embezzled from your accounts over time, small amounts you never noticed. How much? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Approximately $400,000 from various sources. Your retirement fund, Eleanor's life insurance that should have gone to her hospice, bonds you'd bought for Celeste's college that she cashed out and rerouted. She already stole $400,000 and still tried to kill me for more? Greed is an addiction, Louise said grimly. I've seen it before. They start small, get away with it, then want everything. Patricia began preparing legal documents with fierce efficiency. We're filing charges for fraud, forgery, and elder abuse in addition to the attempted murder charges. We're also freezing all accounts and reversing every fraudulent transaction. What about the house? I asked. The home that had been in my family for 6 generations, where every Blackwood baby had been born until hospitals became common. She attempted to forge a deed transfer last month, but it requires notarization from someone I know personally. She was probably planning to complete it after I was dead, I finished. My phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize, with a 305 area code, Miami. Daddy, Celeste's voice was weak, raspy. Please don't hang up. Patricia gestured for me to put it on speaker. Louise started recording. What do you want, Celeste? I'm dying, Daddy. The poison. The doctors say there's organ damage. My kidneys are failing. I felt nothing. The place where parental love should have surged with concern was a wasteland. You chose this path, I said simply. Matthias made me do it, she cried. He manipulated me, convinced me you never loved me, that you only loved Mama. Stop. My voice cut through her performance. Matthias didn't make you steal from your mother's cancer fund. Matthias didn't make you practice forging my signature for 15 years. That was all you. How did you know? She caught herself, but too late. How did I know? Because I'm not the senile old fool you thought I was. Because I've been watching you perform for 6 months, waiting for one genuine emotion, one real moment of love. I do love you. You love my money. There's a difference. You're really going to let your own daughter die? My daughter died years ago. I just didn't notice until she tried to kill me. I hung up. The 3 people in the room looked at me with mixtures of sympathy and respect. She's lying about dying, Louise said quietly. I just checked with the hospital. She's stable. The kidney damage is minimal. She'll make a full recovery. Another manipulation. Another lie. How many more were there that I hadn't discovered yet? Patricia finished the paperwork. Garrison, I need you to understand something. Once we file these documents, once we pursue prosecution, there's no going back. She'll likely spend 15 to 20 years in prison. I thought of Eleanor, of her grace, her faith in redemption. She would have forgiven Celeste. She would have found a way to see good in her. But Eleanor was gone, and I was done being a fool. File everything, I said, and change my will. Everything goes to the Savannah Historical Foundation and the hospice that cared for Eleanor. Celeste gets nothing, not even a photograph.
When Matthias Crenshaw took the witness stand, he smiled at my daughter. Then he destroyed her with the truth she never thought he'd tell. The Chatham County Courthouse was packed to capacity. 4 months had passed since that horrible night, and Savannah society had been riveted by the story of old Savannah money, attempted patricide, and a daughter's ultimate betrayal. I sat in the front row, my dress uniform pristine, medals gleaming, a visual reminder to the jury of the man Celeste had tried to murder. She sat at the defendant's table in a simple gray dress, her public defender beside her. The designer clothes were gone, the perfect makeup absent. She'd lost weight, her face gaunt. For a moment, she looked like Eleanor during chemotherapy, and I had to look away. Matthias Crenshaw was brought in wearing shackles. He'd already been convicted for the other murders, sentenced to life without parole. Today, he was the prosecution's star witness, having cut a deal to testify against Celeste in exchange for nothing. He was already serving life. Perhaps he just wanted the pleasure of destroying her, the way she'd helped him destroy others. "Mr. Crenshaw," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court how you met Celeste Blackwood." His voice was smooth, cultured, the voice of a predator who could charm his way into anyone's life. Through a grief support forum online, but she wasn't grieving, she was hunting. Hunting for what? For someone like me, someone who could help her accelerate her inheritance, as she put it in her first message to me. I have to stop here and ask you something crucial. If someone you loved was in danger right now, wouldn't you want them to know the warning signs? Please share this story with just one person, a parent, a grandparent, anyone who trusts too easily. Your share isn't just spreading a story, it's potentially saving a life. Click share now because every second counts when someone is slowly being poisoned by someone they trust.
"She contacted you first?" the prosecutor continued. "Oh, yes. She'd researched me thoroughly, knew about my previous successes. She said she'd been planning this since she was a teenager, but needed professional guidance." Celeste's lawyer objected, but was overruled. What exactly did she want? Her father dead within 6 months. She said he was dying anyway, that it would be merciful, but she needed it to happen before he discovered the money she'd been stealing. "He was never going to find out," Celeste suddenly shouted, standing up. "He trusted me completely. I could have bled him dry for years." The judge banged his gavel, threatening contempt, but the damage was done. She'd admitted, in front of everyone, that she'd been stealing from me long before the murder attempt. Matthias continued his testimony, each word another nail in Celeste's coffin. He produced text messages where she'd laughed, actually laughed, about my deteriorating health. "She sent me videos," Matthias said, scrolling through his phone. Here, she filmed him struggling to breathe and added laughing emojis. The caption says, "The old fool actually thinks I care." I closed my eyes, remembering that day. I'd been having a bad episode, and Celeste had seemed so concerned, holding my hand, telling me she loved me, all while filming my suffering for her accomplice's amusement. "But it didn't work as planned," the prosecutor prompted. "No. Garrison Blackwood was smarter than we anticipated. Military intelligence, apparently. He switched the bowls. Celeste ingested her own poison." Matthias actually chuckled. "Poetic justice, really." "You find this amusing?" "I find it ironic. She was so confident, so sure her father was a weak, dying old man who'd never suspect his precious daughter. She never considered he might be playing his own game." When my turn came to testify, I walked to the witness stand slowly, letting the jury see my slight limp from the shrapnel I'd taken in Fallujah, letting them see the father Celeste had tried to murder. "Mr. Blackwood," the prosecutor said gently, "please tell us about your relationship with your daughter before this incident." I looked at Celeste then, really looked at her for the first time in months. I loved her more than life itself. She was our miracle baby. Eleanor and I had tried for 7 years before she came along. Every birthday, every Christmas, every achievement was a celebration. When she graduated from high school, I cried. When she got into college, I was the proudest father in Savannah. What changed? Eleanor, my wife, got cancer. During those 2 years of treatment, Celeste became distant. I thought it was grief, fear of losing her mother. I didn't realize she was planning to profit from it. "Objection!" Celeste's lawyer called out. Sustained. I continued. After Eleanor died, Celeste disappeared for over 10 years. No calls, no visits. Then she returned when I was diagnosed with lung disease. I thought she'd come back because she loved me, because family matters. I was a fool. You're not a fool, Mr. Blackwood. You're a father who loved his daughter. I was both, a loving father and a fool. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Tell us about the night of the poisoning. I described it all. The switched bowls, the surveillance, the horrifying realization that my daughter was trying to kill me. The jury hung on every word, some crying, others staring at Celeste with undisguised disgust. Do you hate your daughter now, Mr. Blackwood? I thought about the question, really considered it. No, I don't hate her. Hate requires emotional investment. What I feel is nothing. She's a stranger who happens to share my DNA. My daughter, the one I loved, either never existed or died somewhere along the way. Celeste sobbed then, loud, theatrical sobs that felt as hollow as everything else about her. The verdict came back in less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The judge sentenced her to 20 years with possibility of parole in 15. As they led her away, Celeste turned to me one last time. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she said, using the childhood name she hadn't called me in 20 years. But it was too late for sorry. Too late for Daddy. Too late for nothing but consequences. I found her childhood diary, hidden in the attic. The last entry, written on her 13th birthday, said, "Figured out how to copy Daddy's signature perfectly. One day, everything he has will be mine." The house felt different, with silence as its only occupant. I'd returned from the trial to rooms that echoed with ghosts, not just Celeste's, but Eleanor's too, as if the betrayal had somehow tainted even the good memories. I couldn't sleep in our bedroom anymore. Instead, I'd taken to dozing in my study, surrounded by books and military memorabilia, the remnants of a life that had made sense before everything unraveled. It was there, unable to face another sleepless night, that I decided to clean out the attic. 170 years of Blackwood family history filled the space under the rafters. Confederate uniforms, debutante dresses, Christmas decorations from the 1800s, and in the corner, a trunk labeled Celeste's Childhood in Eleanor's careful script. I shouldn't have opened it. Some doors once opened can't be closed. But my hands moved of their own accord, lifting the lid on my daughter's past. Before I share what I found in that trunk, I need you to understand something. If you're still watching, if you've come this far with me on this journey of heartbreak, you're not just a viewer. You're a witness to how evil can grow in the most unexpected places. Please, subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell. Not for metrics or algorithms, but because somewhere a parent needs to hear this story before it's too late. Your subscription might be the reason they see the warning signs in time. Inside were report cards, all A's, artwork from elementary school, photographs from cotillion classes, and at the bottom, a stack of diaries with little locks, all broken. I opened the earliest one, pink with unicorns on the cover. The entries were typical child's thoughts, friends, toys, dreams of princesses. But as I read chronologically through the years, darkness crept in, like kudzu, slowly at first, then overwhelming everything. Age 11. Mama showed me the insurance papers today when she thought I was asleep. $500,000. When Daddy dies, we'll be rich. Age 12. Practice Daddy's signature 100 times today. Almost perfect. He'll never know. Age 13. Figured out how to copy Daddy's signature perfectly. One day, everything he has will be mine. Mama's too when she goes. And then, the entry that stopped my heart. Age 14. Found a website about poisons that can't be detected. Bookmarked for future reference. Patience is key. Wait until the time is right. My hands shook as I set the diary down. The premeditation went back almost 2 decades. This wasn't Matthias Crenshaw's influence. This was Celeste, planning murder before she could even drive. I found more evidence in that trunk. Printed articles about inheritance law, elder abuse that couldn't be proven, poisonings that looked like natural causes. She'd been researching for years, building her knowledge base, waiting for the perfect opportunity. My phone rang, startling me from my horrified trance. It was Louise Tubado. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm sorry to call so late, but you need to know something. I've been investigating Matthias Crenshaw's other victims. One of them, Harrison Beaumont, from Charleston. His daughter went to boarding school with Celeste." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Celeste knew about Crenshaw's services years before she contacted him. The Beaumont girl, Rebecca, she and Celeste were roommates. Rebecca is serving 15 years for her father's murder." The web of deception kept expanding. My daughter hadn't been corrupted by Matthias Crenshaw. She'd sought him out, knowing exactly what he offered. "There's more," Louise continued. "I found Celeste's real life in Miami, not just the penthouse. She had a storage unit. What was in it? Your things. Items she'd stolen over the years that you probably never noticed were missing. Eleanor's jewelry, your father's watch, first edition books from your library. She'd been systematically robbing you for 20 years, stockpiling for when she could sell everything." I climbed down from the attic and walked to Eleanor's portrait in the hallway. My wife smiled back at me, frozen in time before cancer and betrayal had touched our family. "How did we create this?" I asked her painted face. "Where did we go wrong?" But I knew the answer. We hadn't gone wrong. Sometimes evil doesn't need a reason or a cause. Sometimes it just exists, wearing the face of someone you love. The next morning, I made a decision. The house that had sheltered 6 generations of Blackwoods would shelter no more. I called Patricia Winthrop. I want to donate the house to the Savannah Historical Foundation, with one condition. It becomes a museum about elder abuse, a warning to others. "That's very generous, Garrison, but are you sure? This house has been in your family since 1852. I know, but keeping it would be like living in a crime scene. Let it serve a purpose now. Let it save other families from what happened to mine." 3 weeks later, I stood in the garden as movers carefully removed Eleanor's piano, the last piece I was keeping. Everything else would stay, becoming part of the museum's exhibit about how betrayal can hide behind familiar faces. "Mr. Blackwood?" A young woman approached, reporter's notebook in hand. "I'm Sarah Chen from the Savannah Morning News. Could I ask you a few questions about your decision to donate the house?" "Ask." I watched them loading the piano. "Why turn your family home into a museum about elder abuse?" "Because silence is what allows predators like my daughter to succeed. If my story, my house, my pain can prevent even one elderly parent from being poisoned by their child, then something good will have come from this nightmare. Do you have any message for Celeste?" I thought about it, then shook my head. "No. You can't send messages to the dead, and my daughter died the moment she decided my life was worth less than my money." The empty house stood behind me, waiting for its transformation. Soon, tourists would walk through rooms where I raised a daughter who tried to kill me, where Eleanor died believing Celeste loved us both. Let them learn from our tragedy. Let them see the warning signs we missed. Let our pain become their protection. 7 years later, I received a letter from prison. Celeste had found God, she said. But even God can't resurrect trust that's been poisoned to death. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, exactly 7 years after the trial. I recognized Celeste's handwriting immediately, the same careful cursive Eleanor had taught her, though now it showed the tremor of hard years. I was living in a cottage on Tybee Island by then, a simple place where the sound of waves replaced the echoes of betrayal. The Savannah House had become the most visited museum in the historic district, with thousands learning about elder abuse through our family's tragedy. I set the letter aside unopened and went about my day. I was teaching a workshop at the Veterans Center about recognizing financial exploitation. My story had saved 12 lives that year alone, elderly veterans who recognized the warning signs because of what I'd shared. "Mr. Blackwood," said James Patterson, the center's director and a fellow Marine, "your presentation today was powerful. That mother who was crying, her son has been slowly poisoning her. She's going to the police tonight." "Another life saved," I said, but felt no satisfaction, only the weight of necessity. If my pain could prevent others suffering, then at least Celeste's betrayal had served some purpose. That evening, I finally opened Celeste's letter. "I'm about to share my daughter's final words to me, but first, I need you to make me a promise. If this story has touched you, if you felt the weight of betrayal and the importance of vigilance, please subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, share this video with every parent, every grandparent you know. Your action today could be the warning that saves someone tomorrow. Don't let my story be repeated in another family. Please do it now, before you forget, before you move on. Someone's life might literally depend on it." "Dear Daddy," it began, and I almost stopped reading there. She'd lost the right to call me that, but curiosity, that human weakness, drove me forward. "I know you'll probably burn this without reading it, but I have to try. I've found God in here, Daddy. Real faith, not the performance I used to put on for you and Mama. I understand now what I've done, the monster I've became. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I know that's impossible. I poisoned you, betrayed you, desecrated Mama's memory. These are facts that no amount of repentance can change. But I need you to know that the woman who did those things, she's dead. She died in this cell, slowly, painfully, as I realized what I'd thrown away for money that was never mine to take. I have kidney disease now, permanent damage from the antifreeze. I need dialysis 3 times a week. The poison I meant for you is still killing me, just slowly. There's justice in that, I suppose. God's way of making me understand what I tried to do to you. Matthias was killed last year, another inmate, someone whose grandfather he'd helped murder. They found him in the shower room. I felt nothing when they told me. He was just a tool I used, not the cause of my crimes. I chose every action, every lie, every drop of poison. I work in the prison library now. I read to inmates who never learned how. Sometimes I tell them about you, about the father who loved me so much he couldn't see what I was becoming until I tried to kill him. They don't believe me at first, that someone could do that to their own parent. Then they look in my eyes and see the truth. I've been diagnosed with cancer, kidney cancer, spreading to my liver. The doctors say I have maybe a year. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I deserve none. I'm telling you because I need you to know that I won't be seeking parole. I won't be trying to contact you again. I won't be a threat to anyone else's parents. I've left instructions that when I die, I want to be cremated and my ashes scattered in the Atlantic, far from Savannah, far from Mama, far from any place that holds good memories I don't deserve to be part of. I know you donated the house. I'm glad. Let it stand as a warning. Let other families learn from our tragedy. Let my crime prevent others. I love you, Daddy. Or rather,
The daughter you deserved would have loved you. The daughter I should have been loved you. The monster I became was incapable of love, only greed. Don't write back. Don't visit. Don't think of me. Live your life knowing you survived, that you're helping others survive. That's enough. That has to be enough. There's one more thing. I've been corresponding with the families of Matthias's other victims, apologizing, though I know words mean nothing. One of them, Mrs. Patterson from Charleston, she wrote back. She said forgiveness isn't for the perpetrator, it's for the victim, to free them from the weight of hatred. She forgave me, she said, not because I deserve it, but because she deserves peace. Maybe one day you'll find that kind of peace too. Not for me, but for yourself. You deserve to be free of this burden I placed on you. Your daughter in blood only, Celeste. I read the letter 3 times, searching for manipulation, for the con, for the angle. But sometimes prison and impending death do change people. Sometimes monsters do realize what they've become. It doesn't undo the damage, doesn't resurrect trust, doesn't rebuild bridges burned with betrayal. I filed the letter with the rest of the legal documents, not out of sentiment, but as evidence. Evidence that even evil can recognize itself, even if it's too late to matter. A week later, Patricia Winthrop called. Garrison, Celeste has removed you as your emergency contact and next of kin. She's listed the prison chaplain instead. She's also signed a document refusing any inheritance from the Blackwood estate, should any exist. There won't be any, I said firmly. Everything goes to the Veterans Foundation and Eleanor's hospice. I know, but legally she's severing all ties. She's even petitioned to change her last name to her prison number. She wants to die as inmate 47892, not as Celeste Blackwood. This should have felt like victory, but all I felt was empty. The war was over, but wars don't really end. They just leave scars and stories. That night, I visited Eleanor's grave for the first time since the trial. Her headstone was simple, elegant, the way she'd wanted it. Beloved wife and mother, it read. Mother. Even now, even after everything, Eleanor was Celeste's mother. I failed her, Eleanor. I failed our daughter. The wind whispered through the moss, and for a moment I could almost hear Eleanor's voice. She failed herself, Garrison. Evil is a choice, not an inheritance. I left white roses on her grave, for purity, for new beginnings, for the peace that still eluded me. 6 months later, I received word that Celeste had died. The cancer had moved faster than expected. She died alone, refusing visitors, refusing comfort, refusing even the chaplain at the end. Her last words, according to the nurse, were, "Tell my father I'm sorry." But sorry doesn't resurrect trust. Sorry doesn't undo attempted murder. Sorry doesn't bring back the daughter I thought I'd raised. I didn't attend the state-funded cremation. I didn't collect her ashes. I let her disappear into the Atlantic as she'd requested, far from family, far from home, far from any claim to the love she'd poisoned. The cottage on Tybee Island became my sanctuary. I continued teaching, warning, protecting other families from the fate that had befallen mine. Each life saved was a small redemption, a tiny light in the darkness Celeste had created.
My story ends here, but yours continues. If you've watched until the end, you've witnessed the complete destruction of a family by greed. The slow poison of betrayal that kills more than just the body. It kills the soul. Please, don't let this story die with the video. Subscribe to this channel, not for me, but for every parent who needs to hear this warning. Share this video with everyone you know who has adult children, who has wealth, who has trust that might be misplaced. Hit that like button if you believe that stories like mine need to be heard, no matter how painful they are. Comment below if you've seen warning signs in your own family. You're not alone, and your story might save someone else. And please ring that notification bell, because tomorrow I'll share another story, another warning, another chance to prevent tragedy. Don't let someone you love become the next Celeste. Don't let yourself become the next Garrison Blackwood. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And remember, sometimes the people who should love us most are the ones capable of the greatest betrayal. Love with your heart, but protect yourself with your mind. Stay safe, stay aware, stay alive.